I was 28 when I bought my first home. Not just any home, but the lakeside property my grandfather Thomas left me in his will. My parents and younger brother Justin were furious. They always favored him, celebrating his every achievement while ignoring mine. I thought distance and success would heal those wounds, but when they sued me for that house, claiming grandfather was manipulated, I realized how deep their entitlement ran. My wife Amanda stood by me through it all until they took things too far. I never imagined they would kidnap her, claiming they were saving her from me. Let me know where you are watching from, and subscribe if you enjoy real stories about family drama. Trust me, this one gets wild. Growing up in suburban Connecticut, my childhood looked perfect from the outside. Our two-story colonial house in a good school district, 2 cars in the garage, and family vacations twice a year painted a picture of suburban bliss. But inside those walls, the emotional temperature was always cold, especially toward me. From my earliest memories, it was clear that my brother Justin, 3 years younger than me, was the golden child. My parents, Richard and Linda, made no effort to hide their preference. Our living room was a shrine to Justin's shelves, lined with his sports trophies, walls covered with framed newspaper clippings of his high school football victories, and school photos prominently displayed on the mantel. My academic achievements, including winning 3 state math competitions, were barely acknowledged, with a quick good job before the conversation returned to Justin. When I was 16, I got my first job at the local computer repair shop to save for a used car. I worked weekends and summers, putting away every penny. Meanwhile, on Justin's 16th birthday, my parents surprised him with a brand new Ford Mustang with a custom paint job. I still remember the sting of watching him get those keys while I continued taking the bus to school and work. The pattern continued throughout high school. My parents attended every single one of Justin's football games, cheering loudly from the stands and hosting team dinners afterward. But when I graduated second in my class, they skipped the ceremony for one of Justin's regional games. "You understand, right, Graham? This is a big opportunity for your brother," my mother said, not even looking at me as she packed snacks for the trip. The only person who truly saw me was my grandfather, Thomas. A self-made man who built a successful construction business, he recognized my intelligence and drive. During summer breaks, I would stay with him at his lakeside home for weeks at a time. Away from my parents' constant comparison, I could finally breathe. "They just do not understand you, Graham," he would tell me while teaching me to fish off his dock. "But that is their loss. Keep your head down, work hard, and build your own path. Success is the best revenge." Grandfather Thomas taught me about investing, saving, and the importance of self-reliance. He would pore over programming books with me, not understanding the content but respecting my passion. "Character is built in the quiet moments when nobody is watching," he would say. Those words became my mantra. When college application season arrived, my parents pushed hard for me to apply to Princeton, their alma mater. Instead, I accepted a full scholarship to the State University's computer science program. The disappointment on their faces when I announced my decision was palpable. "I guess it is a practical choice," my father said, dismissively, as if I had settled for something inferior rather than earned a competitive scholarship. It was at State University that I met Amanda during a freshman programming class. She sat next to me struggling with her first coding assignment, and I offered to help. Unlike the coldness I was accustomed to at home, Amanda radiated warmth. Her genuine laugh and the way she listened intently when I spoke made me feel valued in a way I had rarely experienced outside of my grandfather's home. Amanda came from a loving middle-class family that embraced me immediately. Sunday dinners at her parents' house became the highlight of my week, filled with genuine conversation and acceptance. For the first time, I experienced what a supportive family could feel like. After graduation, I took a job at a promising tech startup while Justin attended Cornell on our parents' dime. My salary was modest, but I lived frugally and invested wisely, following my grandfather's advice. Amanda and I moved into a small apartment together, building a life based on mutual respect and shared goals. During those early career years, I maintained minimal contact with my family. Occasional holiday visits and brief phone calls on birthdays were enough to keep the peace without subjecting myself to their subtle put-downs. Instead, I focused on building my career and my relationship with Amanda. 3 years after graduation, I proposed to Amanda during a weekend trip to the lake house with my grandfather. With his blessing and Amanda's enthusiastic yes, I felt like my real life was finally beginning built on my terms with people who truly cared about me. When I was 28, my grandfather Thomas passed away peacefully in his sleep. Despite my success at work, the loss hit me hard. He was more than a grandfather. He was my mentor, my supporter, and the father figure I had always needed. Amanda held me as I cried after the funeral, my first time breaking down since childhood. A week later, the family gathered at the attorney's office for the reading of the will. I expected grandfather's assets to be divided equally among his children and grandchildren. What I did not expect was the clause that left his lakeside house specifically to me. To my grandson Graham, I leave my lake property in full, including all furnishings and the boat. He alone appreciated its value beyond the material, and I know he will honor the memories we created there. The silence that followed was deafening. My parents exchanged glances with Justin, their faces hardening with each word. The lakeside house was not the most valuable asset grandfather owned, but it was a well-maintained property worth about $350,000 in a desirable location. More importantly to me, it was where I had found acceptance and guidance during the hardest years of my life. "There must be some mistake," my mother finally said, her voice tight. "Dad always said that house would stay in the family." The attorney looked confused. "It is staying in the family, Mrs. Harrison. Graham is family." "You know what she means," my father interjected. "The main family line. Justin is going to need a house when he gets married, and this property has been a gathering place for everyone." Everyone except me, I thought bitterly, remembering the many family events held there that I had not been invited to after I left for college. The attorney explained that the will was legally sound with no ambiguities. Grandfather had updated it just 6 months before his death of sound mind, and with proper witnesses. The lakeside house was mine, free and clear. Amanda and I moved into the inherited house the following month. The startup I worked for had gone remote, allowing me to work from anywhere. We spent weekends painting walls, updating the kitchen, and making the space our own, while preserving the elements that made it special to my grandfather and me. The fishing photos stayed on the walls, and his old chair remained in its place by the fireplace. 3 weeks after we moved in, my parents and Justin showed up unannounced on a Sunday afternoon. Amanda greeted them warmly, but their cold response made it clear this was not a friendly visit. "We need to discuss the house situation," my father announced, as they sat stiffly in the living room refusing refreshments. "This property has been in the family for generations, and it should continue with the direct line. I am family." I reminded him, trying to keep my voice level. "Grandfather wanted me to have it. Justin needs this house more than you do," my mother said, as if I had not spoken. "His business ventures require substantial startup capital, and having a mortgage-free property would give him the financial freedom he needs." I learned that Justin had attempted 3 failed businesses since college, each funded by my parents. His latest venture, an upscale sports bar, was hemorrhaging money despite the significant investment. They had already remortgaged their own home to support him. "Look," Graham Justin finally spoke, leaning forward. "You have always been the smart one. You have a good job, you are doing well. I am trying to find my footing. Can you not just help your brother out this once?" The irony of his statement was not lost on me. After a lifetime of being the less favored son, I was now expected to give up my inheritance because I had managed to succeed despite their lack of support. "This is not just about property," I explained. "This house represents the only real parental guidance I ever received." Grandfather believed in me when no one else did. The conversation deteriorated from there. My mother brought up sacrifices they had supposedly made for me as a child. My father implied that my success was due to their parenting, not my own hard work. Justin alternated between self-pity and veiled threats about family loyalty. Amanda sat beside me, her hand in mine, a silent pillar of support. When they finally left with promises that this is not over, she held me as years of suppressed emotion poured out. "They never saw you," she whispered, stroking my hair. "But I see you, Graham. I always will." 2 weeks later, a courier delivered legal papers to our door. My family was suing me, claiming grandfather had been manipulated into changing his will and was not of sound mind when he did so. They demanded the property be transferred to Justin as the rightful heir. The lawsuit blindsided us. Amanda and I had to hire an expensive attorney to defend against their claims. Our savings, which we had been putting aside for starting our own family, quickly dwindled as legal fees mounted. The legal battle turned ugly fast. My parents submitted affidavits claiming I had isolated grandfather from the family in his final years, filling his head with lies about Justin. Former neighbors were persuaded to testify that grandfather seemed confused in his last months. Justin tearfully told the court that grandfather had verbally promised him the lake house on multiple occasions. The truth came out during discovery. In emails between my parents, we found they had promised Justin the lake house years before, assuming grandfather would leave it to them and they could give it to him. Their sense of ownership over something that was never theirs to give was staggering. Court appearances became exercises in painful character assassination. My childhood was rewritten as a series of ungrateful acts and rebellions against loving parents. Justin was portrayed as the devoted grandson who visited regularly, conveniently omitting that his visits usually coincided with requests for money. After 6 grueling months, the judge ruled in my favor. Grandfather's attorney provided records of regular cognitive assessments Thomas had undergone specifically to prevent such challenges. His explicit written statements about his reasons for leaving me the house were entered into evidence. The case was dismissed, but the damage to our family relationship was irreparable. The lawsuit should have been the end of it. In rational families, even after bitter disputes, there comes a time for acceptance and moving forward. But the Harrisons were not a rational family, and losing the lawsuit only intensified their resentment. In the months that followed, my parents launched what could only be described as a smear campaign. Extended family members, old neighbors, even my few remaining high school contacts received emails and calls painting me as a manipulative grandson who took advantage of an elderly man. Most people saw through it, but the constant defense was exhausting. Amanda bore the brunt of it when I was not around. As a software developer for a cybersecurity firm, I occasionally traveled for client meetings or conferences. During these trips, the harassment would escalate as if they were testing boundaries. It started with strange calls to our home phone. Amanda would answer only to hear my mother's voice, asking to speak with her alone about Graham. When Amanda refused, the calls would end abruptly. They said they have information about you that I should know, Amanda told me after one such call. That there are things from your past that would change how I see you. I told them we do not keep secrets, but they insisted they were trying to protect me. I brushed it off as desperate attempts to drive a wedge between us. Amanda and I had been together for 7 years, at that point married for 3. There were no dark secrets between us, no skeletons waiting to be exposed. Still, each new contact left her more unsettled. Then came the unexpected visits. Twice Amanda called me at work, voice shaking, to tell me my parents had shown up at the house, demanding to talk to her alone. Both times, she had refused to let them in, and they eventually left. Your mother had this strange look in her eyes. Graham, she said after the second visit. Not angry exactly, more like determined. It scared me. I contacted our lawyer, who sent a cease and desist letter. The direct approaches stopped, but were replaced by something more insidious. Friends began to call Amanda, concerned about her welfare. Apparently, my parents had been spreading rumors that I was controlling and potentially abusive, isolating Amanda from friends and family. The accusations were ludicrous. Amanda had a thriving social life, close relationships with her own family, and complete freedom in our marriage. But mudsticks and the constant defense against these whispered claims took its toll on both of us. "Maybe we should sell the house and move," Amanda suggested one night after another disturbing phone call. "Start fresh somewhere they cannot find us so easily." I considered it seriously. The house that had once been my sanctuary now felt tainted, each room a reminder of the battle we had fought. But selling felt like another victory for them, another way they could control my life from a distance. "Let us give it more time," I said. "They cannot keep this up forever." How wrong I was. My breaking point came in late October, almost a year after the lawsuit was settled. I had a 3-day client meeting in Chicago, my first overnight trip in months. Amanda and I had a video call the first night I was gone. Everything normal. She mentioned she might go visit her sister the next day, about an hour's drive away. The next evening, our scheduled call time came and went with no answer. I texted, then called again, unease growing with each unanswered ring. By midnight, panic had set in. I called her sister, who had not seen or heard from Amanda all day. Her phone was going straight to voicemail. I booked the first morning flight home, calling neighbors as I rushed to the airport. One mentioned seeing Amanda getting into a car around noon, but could not see with whom. I called the local police from the airport, but as a missing adult, gone less than 24 hours, they were reluctant to act immediately. When I finally reached our house, the scene confirmed my worst fears. Amanda's phone lay shattered on the kitchen floor. Her purse was still there, but her jacket and shoes were missing. The back door stood slightly ajar, the frame splintered near the lock. The police took the situation more seriously when they saw the signs of forced entry. They took statements, examined the scene, and promised to begin searching immediately. I paced our home in a state of terrified agitation, calling everyone we knew, checking hospitals, and scanning our joint accounts for any activity. As I scrolled desperately through Amanda's contacts, a text notification appeared on my phone. Unknown number, but the message froze my blood. "She is safe now. Stop looking." I called the detective immediately, who traced the number to a burner phone purchased with cash at a convenience store 40 miles north. Security camera footage showed my father making the purchase. The pieces fell into place with horrifying clarity when our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patel, knocked on my door later that evening. She had been away visiting her daughter, but had just checked her security cameras, which faced partially toward our driveway. "I saw something strange yesterday," she said, showing me the footage on her tablet. "Your parents' car was here, and it looked like they were helping Amanda into it." I thought nothing of it until I heard the police were here today. The footage was grainy but unmistakable. My mother held Amanda's arm while my father scanned the street. Justin sat in the driver's seat. Amanda's body language was stiff, resistant. As they guided her into the back seat, my mother's mouth moved near her ear, saying something that made Amanda suddenly go compliant. When I showed the detective, things moved quickly. Cell phone tower pings located my parents' phones near their remote cabin in the Adirondacks, a 3-hour drive north. Police in that jurisdiction were dispatched immediately. I followed in my car, a journey that felt like an eternity, my mind racing with scenarios each worse than the last. What had they told Amanda? What were they doing to her? The family cabin was isolated, the nearest neighbor a mile away through dense forest. When I arrived, police had already secured the perimeter. An officer intercepted me before I could rush in. "Sir, we need you to stay back. We have made contact and are negotiating." Through the trees, I could see my parents' car and Justin's truck parked outside the rustic 2-bedroom cabin, where we had occasionally spent summers during my childhood. Lights glowed behind drawn curtains, and I could make out silhouettes moving inside, After what seemed like hours but was probably 30 minutes, the cabin door opened. Amanda emerged first, flanked by a female officer. Even from a distance, I could see she was physically unharmed, but moving like someone in shock. Behind her came my parents, and Justin, hands raised, faces contorted with a mix of defiance and fear. I ran to Amanda, stopping short when I saw her flinch. "It is me," I said softly, hands open at my sides. "It is just me." She looked at me with confusion, then recognition dawned. "Graham," they said. They told me. She collapsed against me, sobbing. As the officers separated us to take statements, the story emerged in fragments. My parents had approached Amanda while I was away, claiming they had evidence I was unfaithful and planning to leave her. When she dismissed them, they forced their way in, telling her they were saving her from an abusive relationship she was too manipulated to recognize. At the cabin, they had spent 2 days showing her fabricated evidence of my supposed infidelity and abuse, including doctored photos and emails. They had taken her phone, allowed her no outside contact, and convinced her they were protecting her from a man she never truly knew. They seemed so certain, so concerned. Amanda explained later, shame coloring her voice. They kept saying they had proof that they loved me like a daughter and could not stand by while you hurt me. After hours of it, I started to doubt everything. They were so convincing, Graham. My parents told police and anyone who would listen that they were rescuing Amanda from an abusive situation, that I had isolated her, controlled her, and was planning to harm her. They claimed their actions were a desperate intervention, not a kidnapping. The police were not convinced. As Amanda's shock wore off and she gave her full statement, the truth became clear. This was a premeditated abduction designed to destroy our marriage and punish me for keeping the house. When the officers led my family to the waiting patrol cars, my mother caught my eye. There was no remorse there, only cold fury and something like surprise that her plan had failed. Justin looked away, unable to meet my gaze. My father stared straight ahead, jaw set, as if still convinced of his righteousness. As Amanda and I drove home in stunned silence, the weight of what had happened settled over us like a heavy blanket. This was no longer about a house or an inheritance. This was about people so consumed by entitlement that they were willing to destroy lives to get what they wanted. The days following Amanda's rescue were a blur of police statements, legal consultations, and emotional aftershocks. We stayed in a hotel for the first week, unable to face returning to the house that no longer felt safe. Amanda jumped at unexpected sounds and had trouble sleeping often, waking in panic, disoriented about where she was and who was beside her. My parents and Justin were charged with kidnapping, breaking and entering, and fabricating evidence. Their defense painted them as concerned family members acting out of love, but the premeditation, evident in their actions, from the burner phone to the isolated cabin, undermined this narrative. They were released on bail pending trial, but a restraining order kept them far from us. As the criminal case proceeded, we focused on healing. Amanda started therapy 3 times a week, working through the trauma and the lingering doubts my family had planted. I joined her for couples sessions where we rebuilt the trust that had been shaken, not by my actions, but by the poisonous lies told with such conviction. The hardest part, Amanda confessed during one session, was that they knew exactly what to say to make me doubt everything. They knew my insecurities, my fears. They used every bit of information they had ever gathered about me as a weapon. The therapist helped us understand that this was common in family manipulation, this surgical targeting of vulnerabilities. It did not mean our relationship was weak, only that the attack had been expertly crafted by people who knew exactly where to strike. For me, the grief was overwhelming. Despite the years of favoritism and emotional neglect, some small part of me had always hoped for eventual reconciliation. Now, faced with the depths of their malice, I had to accept that I had never had the family I thought I did and never would. You are mourning the family you deserved, but never had our therapist explained. That is a profound loss. even if what you are losing was more idea than reality. While we focused on emotional recovery, practical matters demanded attention too. The lakeside house, once my sanctuary and connection to the only family member who truly loved me, now felt contaminated. Every corner held memories of the legal battle or the kidnapping aftermath. After much discussion, Amanda and I decided to sell it. "Your grandfather gave you this house because he loved you," Amanda said, as we packed up his fishing gear and photographs. "But the love is in you, not in these walls. We can take that with us wherever we go." We found a buyer quickly and used the proceeds to purchase a home in Colorado 2,000 miles from my family and the painful memories. The physical distance provided a buffer that allowed us both to breathe easier. In our new community, we built a network of friends who became our chosen family. Amanda's parents and sister visited regularly, bringing warmth and normal family dynamics that helped heal old wounds. My former colleagues at the cybersecurity firm connected me with a promising startup in Denver, where my career continued to flourish despite my family's attempts to damage my professional reputation. The criminal case ended with a plea deal. My parents and Justin avoided jail time, but received probation, community service, and mandatory counseling. The light sentence frustrated me, but Amanda reminded me that true justice would come from living well, not from their punishment. "They will always be trapped in their bitterness," she said. "We get to be free." Free we were gradually. Amanda's nightmares became less frequent. I stopped checking the locks 3 times before bed. We planted a garden, adopted a dog, and began talking about starting the family we had put on hold during the crisis. 6 months after the move, I received a letter from my father. I almost burned it unopened, but Amanda encouraged me to read it, pointing out that I could always discard it afterward if it was more manipulation. The letter contained no apology, only justifications, and a renewed insistence that they had acted out of love for both Justin and Amanda. The final paragraph revealed the true purpose: they wanted to reestablish contact to move past this unfortunate misunderstanding. After careful consideration and discussion with our therapist, I wrote back a single page. I did not attack or accuse, merely stated that I had accepted that we had fundamentally different understandings of family love and respect. I wished them well, but made clear that reconciliation was not possible without acknowledgement of the harm done and genuine remorse, neither of which seemed forthcoming. There was no response, and I expected none. Some bridges once burned cannot and should not be rebuilt. The hard lesson I learned through all of this was that family is defined not by blood, but by respect, support, and genuine care. My grandfather understood this. In the end, his greatest gift was not the house, but the wisdom to recognize toxic relationships and the courage to establish boundaries. Today, 2 years after the kidnapping, Amanda and I have found peace in our new life. The trauma has not disappeared, but it has transformed into wisdom and resilience. We have built a home filled with genuine love and respect, the kind of home I never experienced as a child, but always knew was possible. Have you ever had to cut ties with toxic family members to protect yourself or someone you love? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. Sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that ultimately lead to healing. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more real-life stories about overcoming family trauma and building better relationships. Thank you for listening, and remember that you deserve people in your life who truly see and value you, whether they share your blood or not.